proud of. And I can see a spirit of the road here today with little challenges between Pacific and Cuba. And I think that's great because this is what the travelers and people like ourselves want to see. But my history of Romines, I was born in St. Louis, grew up in Pine Lawn until ¡59 when my parents moved out to Spanish Lake. And my dad was a truck driver his whole life. That was his hobby. And right across the street here, where Hall Street comes into Riverview, there used to be a Texaco gas station that was run by a man by the name of Ray Mueller. And when they put Hall Street in, they took his station, some of the ground in that, and he went up to do what he originally wanted to do like 30 years before, to New Douglas, Illinois, and be a farmer. So I can remember growing up, going with my dad over to this Texaco truck station a lot. Right next to the Texaco station was a little house about the size of a one-bedroom home, and there was truck brokers in there. And my dad, when he first started driving and his family moved to St. Louis, they did a lot of what they called wildcatting. You work for different companies. You might work for 5 or 6 different companies if you were an owner-operator in that same week. So he got to know the Texaco station owner real well. Well, right across the street from the Texaco station, where this location is now, sat Romines. But it wasn't as we see it today. It was kind of a typical restaurant. I don't know if they have any old pictures of the original building. And if my memory serves me correct, it probably it actually burnt is what happened, whether it was a kitchen fire, electrical fire. The original Romines burnt probably somewhere in the mid to late 50s. And the original building was pretty typical of all the buildings back then. I can remember walking in, and you'd have tables sitting around. Off to the right as you walked in was kind of a bar counter, and the fried chicken was probably as good then as it is now. Today was delicious. And then off to the left, I can remember this old Rockola type jukebox. And I don't know, you could get 2 or 3 songs for a nickel or something like that. And like I say, in the mid to late 50s, it burnt for whatever reason. And then that's when, I don't know if this entire unit was put up or if they've added on after the original structure of this new building was put up. And as Norman had said, you know, what I remember is Route 66 was the bypass. As you came off the Chain of Rocks Bridge in the Missouri, off to the right was a truck scale for public use. It wasn't a scale set up by the state of Missouri to weigh you. And people would say, well, why didn't they have one going into Illinois? Well, Illinois, back when the bridge was built and they put in this first truck scale that you could use coming in to Missouri, that you had to pay to use, the truck drivers, Illinois had no weight limits. I think there's another reason why my dad liked running in Illinois so much. And that where Missouri had weight limits, and the truckers would want to make sure they were legal coming into Missouri. And I guess if they weren't legal, they either got legal or avoided the scales one way or another. So, but yeah, this was bypass 66, and at one time it went in towards what they call the Circle, and then it went Kings Highway. Well, then in later years, and it might have been when they put the Hall Street in, or it might have even been a little before that, it actually then went up here to North Broadway, and then went in North Broadway down through St. Louis, where it connected up with the city route. And down on North Broadway, one of the first trucking companies to move there from down by the city part was BMAC Transport. They used to be down on 14th Street. And then in the early 50s, they were one of the first ones to move out into this area because the owners, which was 3 brothers, had the vision to see that all the trucking companies were going to have to get out of down in the city and get some bigger terminals. Well, then shortly thereafter, others started moving up around the North Broadway and the Hall Street area. And that's what caused Hall Street to develop. And I guess the trucking companies down in this area, and I imagine Romines over the years have served a lot of truck drivers, probably peaked out in the early 70s. And at that time, the big union local for this area was Local 600. And when I joined in '69, their membership was like 10,000 people. Well, in '99, when I talked to some of the Teamster 600 people, it was less than 3,000. And if you ever go down, you can see a lot of the remnants. There's still trucking companies down there, but when they deregulated the trucking industry in the late 70s, over the next 10, 15-year period, there's a big change, and even up until this day. So I don't know a whole lot else to say. If anybody has a question or so, I try to answer it, or if you want to talk to me later, because, you know, like I say, Norm's got a lot to say yet, and I'm going to let him have the mic now. But does anybody have any questions, or, you know? Yes? I would say, from what I can remember, it was there in the late 70s, but I don't know if it was there. I worked at BMAC myself. That's where my dad worked a lot over the years that he drove. And I worked at BMAC when I was going to college from '65 to '69 in the office. And then when I got out of college, I drove into City Farm for a while. And then in the years following that, sometimes when I would have a day off or something, they'd use me as a casual. So I don't really remember it too much in the late 60s, like '69 or so, but it was there definitely in the late 70s. Yeah.
Hall Street used to be used as an illegal drag strip by kids at night. My brother used to race here in the 60s.
Yeah, they ran several articles in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch papers. I went to high school out in North St. Louis here, and that would have been in the early to mid 60s. And that was a hot night spot for kids to go down with their cars. We just sat and went down and watched, you know. Yes?
My only ticket I ever got was on Hall Street for being there in the wrong hours. And when I went to court, and the judge found out what the cause was, he said that was the most ridiculous thing he ever heard of and threw it out.
Yeah. But it was a lot of fun growing up in the 50s and 60s, and, you know, a lot of neat memories. And every time that I get down this way, I think of the old Texaco station across the road here called Ray's Texaco. And Ray had some sons that helped him. And if you would face it, as you looked out from Romines here, there's a kind of a typical truck, not a truck stop, but Texaco station of the 40s. It was kind of square in nature, and it had a canopy coming out from the office where it had a set of pumps, and then it had another bay door that was more used for lube and that. Then the next bay door over, you just drove in, and it was just concrete floor in there. And then the third door was a pretty good sized station for its time. Was where he drove in and had this open pit underneath it. And his oldest son, his name was Sonny, he fell down in it one time and really messed himself up for the rest of his life. He could hardly walk after that. So, but like I say, and then the station in the around 1960, when Hall Street was being put in and that, and they bought the ground there so they could continue Hall Street through there. He had enough ground he could have still operated, but with the ground that they eminent domain took from him, it literally put him out of business. So I enjoy the time talking to you about it. Thanks.
I didn't know we were talking about this stuff.